What you are about to hear was never supposed to leak. But it did, and once you know it, you cannot unknow it. Hello, friends. My name is James, and you are watching Royal Daily Report, your #1 source for the most exclusive, most shocking, and most talked about royal stories on the internet. If you are new here, hit that subscribe button right now because you do not want to miss what we have coming. And if you have been here from the beginning, you already know. We never stop. We never hold back. And tonight is no different. Let us get into it. Tonight, we are telling you about a visa story. But it is not the one you are expecting. It is not Meghan who has the visa problem. It is Harry, the Duke of Sussex, a British-born prince, 6th in line to the throne, who has spent years building a life in the United States, and who, as of 2026, is facing a legal and immigration controversy. So serious that a U.S. federal judge has ordered his confidential government records to be made public. And buried inside that controversy is the real reason behind every confusing headline about whether Meghan and the children are actually coming back to Britain this summer. Because Harry's status in America and his family's potential return to England are now tangled together in a way that nobody saw coming. This is Royal Daily Report, and tonight we are untangling it completely. Let us start at the very beginning, because this story did not start in 2026, it started in January 2023, when Harry published his memoir, Spare. Inside that book, Harry wrote candidly about using cocaine, cannabis, and magic mushrooms during difficult periods of his life. It was presented as an act of honesty, a prince finally telling the truth about his pain, his grief over his mother, and the ways he tried to cope. But that same honesty created a legal problem on the other side of the Atlantic. Because when Harry first moved to the United States in 2020, he applied for a U.S. visa, and under American immigration law, undisclosed or unlawful drug use can be grounds for visa ineligibility, depending on how an applicant answered specific questions on their application. The moment Spare was published, a conservative Washington, D.C. think tank called the Heritage Foundation noticed the contradiction immediately. If Harry admitted to drug use in his memoir, they argued, the public had a right to know whether he had disclosed that same drug use on his official U.S. visa application. And if he had not, they argued, serious questions needed to be asked about how he was allowed to remain in the country at all. If you want to understand exactly how this fight has unfolded in U.S. courts, subscribe to Royal Daily Report right now. Because what comes next involves a federal judge, a Freedom of Information request, and a ruling that almost nobody expected. The Heritage Foundation filed a Freedom of Information Act request, demanding that the Department of Homeland Security release Harry's immigration paperwork. The U.S. government initially refused. The case went to court. And in September 2024, a federal judge, Carl Nichols, ruled that the public did not have a significant interest in the disclosure of Harry's immigration records, and the request was denied. For a moment, it seemed the matter was settled. Harry's privacy had won. But the Heritage Foundation appealed that decision, and in March 2025, everything changed. Lawyers for the Department of Homeland Security agreed to release redacted versions of Harry's visa forms. Judge Nichols then ordered the documents to be made available, with court filings confirming a deadline for their release. The reasoning behind the reversal has never been fully and publicly explained in simple terms. But the outcome was unmistakable. A sitting member of the British royal family, the brother of the future King of England, was about to have his confidential U.S. immigration paperwork exposed to public scrutiny because of a Washington think tank's persistence and a federal judge's changed mind. Like this video right now if this is the first time you are hearing the full story behind Harry's visa controversy, and subscribe to Royal Daily Report, because what comes next is where this story connects directly to Meghan's potential UK return. Here's the connection that almost nobody has explained clearly until now. As the visa controversy intensified throughout 2025, royal commentators and journalists began asking an obvious question. If Harry's U.S. residency status were ever seriously threatened, would the Sussex family have no choice but to relocate back to the United Kingdom? It became a real talking point. Royal observers speculated openly about whether a worst-case scenario, Harry losing his legal status in America, could force the family back to Britain, regardless of how either of them actually felt about it. And the answer, according to multiple royal commentators, was clear. Meghan made her feelings known. Royal commentator Charlotte Griffiths told GB News directly that despite the ongoing visa controversy, Meghan has, in her words, no intention of moving back to the UK or leaving America. Griffiths added something equally important. She said Harry will never be away from his children, suggesting that whatever happened with his visa status, Harry's actual priority was staying physically close to Archie and Lilibet, wherever that needed to be. So even at the most uncertain moment of this entire controversy, when Harry's right to remain in America was genuinely being litigated in federal court, the people closest to this story were clear that a full relocation back to Britain was not the plan. The family's home, regardless of legal pressure, was going to remain Montecito. Now let us bring this back to the present moment, because the visa controversy and the question of a summer UK visit have been running on two completely separate tracks that the headlines often blur together. The visa fight is about Harry's right to live in the United States. It has nothing to do, legally, with whether Meghan and the children can visit Britain. Those are two entirely different legal and immigration questions governed by two entirely different countries' laws. But emotionally, and in the public narrative, they've become intertwined. Because the visa controversy created a backdrop of instability, a sense that Harry's American life was not as secure as it appeared at the exact same time that reports began circulating about a possible summer 2026 trip to Britain for the Invictus Games countdown event in Birmingham. And that trip, as we have covered extensively on this channel, is hinging entirely on a completely separate issue. Harry's UK security clearance, not his US visa, his British police protection, which was removed in 2020 and which he has spent years fighting in UK courts to have reinstated. Do not go anywhere. Subscribe to Royal Daily Report and turn on those notifications, because what comes next is where these two storylines actually do intersect, in a way that matters enormously for Meghan's decision. Royal commentator Shane Watson, writing in the Sunday Times and cited by GB News, offered an analysis that ties both storylines together with real insight. He argued that Meghan's calculation about returning to Britain has shifted because of how 2026 has unfolded for the Sussexes overall. He wrote that she was never going to step onto the tarmac at Heathrow as what he called the Yoko of the royal family. Chastened by a cancelled Spotify deal, a reduced Netflix deal, and polling that shows William and Catherine's popularity outstripping theirs considerably. Instead, Watson argued if and when Meghan does return, she will do so as part of what he called the Californian business elite, flying the flag of mindful wealth and success. That framing matters because it suggests Meghan's calculus about the UK trip is not driven by Harry's visa troubles in America at all. It is driven by her own brand positioning, her own sense of where she stands publicly, and the practical reality of whether her husband's security situation in Britain has actually been resolved. GB News reported that the trip hinges entirely on the outcome of an ongoing security assessment, with a source telling The Sun directly, quote, "Security is always going to be the deciding factor in this." The same report confirmed that the Ravik Committee, comprising police, royal, and government security specialists, is conducting a review of Harry's request for state-funded armed protection, his first such assessment in 6 years. Now, let us talk about the most recent and most significant development. Radar Online reported in 2026 that fresh legal and security developments have prompted sources to say Harry and Meghan are quietly preparing for a renewed presence in the UK after years of estrangement. The report noted something specific and important, with the Executive Committee for the Protection of Royalty and Public Figures understood to be close to restoring government funded security. Harry would no longer need to give 30 days' notice to Scotland Yard before visiting Britain. That detail matters enormously. 30 days' notice has been one of the quiet, unglamorous obstacles making spontaneous family visits to the UK essentially impossible. If that requirement is lifted, the practical barrier to regular visits, not just one summer trip, but an ongoing relationship with Britain, changes completely. The same report noted that this development coincided with the start of Harry's 6-week High Court case against the Daily Mail, adding to what Radar Online described as a sense that a chapter in the United States may be closing, whether that means an actual relocation or simply a more open and flexible relationship between Harry's American life and his British roots remains to be seen. Let us be completely honest about what all of this actually means when you put it together. Harry's U.S. visa controversy is real, documented, and still legally unresolved in terms of full public disclosure. It has created genuine uncertainty about his long-term immigration status in America. Even though commentators close to the family insist neither Harry nor Meghan have any current plan to relocate permanently, separately, and almost entirely independently. Harry's UK security situation appears to be moving toward resolution, which is what is actually driving the possibility of a July 2026 visit to Birmingham for the Invictus Games countdown. These two stories get mixed together in headlines because they both involve the word visa, immigration, and legal status, and because both stories ultimately raise the same underlying question. Where will Harry and Meghan actually live long term, and what country will their children call home? But the honest answer, based on every credible source available, is that nobody has announced a permanent relocation in either direction. Meghan has said she has no intention of leaving America. Harry has said the UK is his home and central to his children's heritage. Both of those statements can be true simultaneously, in the way that complicated binational families often hold two truths at once without resolving them entirely. Here is what this story tells us about where Harry and Meghan actually stand in 2026. They are not a couple cleanly choosing one country over another. They are navigating to separate, serious, high-stakes legal processes on two different continents simultaneously, while raising two young children and trying to maintain a marriage, a business, and a relationship with an estranged royal family all at the same time. Harry's visa fight in America, his security fight in Britain, both unresolved as of this recording, both deeply consequential for where his family will actually be able to live, work, and travel in the years ahead. And underneath both of those legal battles is the same exhausted, very human reality that Harry has expressed publicly more than once. He just wants to know where home is allowed to be. This is Royal Daily Report, and we will be following both of these stories on both sides of the Atlantic until we have real answers for you. That is all for tonight, friends. I am James, and this has been Royal Daily Report. If this story hit different for you, hit that like button right now. Subscribe if you have not already, and turn on those notifications because we drop new stories every single week. Share this video with one friend who loves royal news. I will see you in the next one. Until then, stay informed, stay curious, and stay royal. Goodbye, friends. Hello, friends. If you are not subscribed to Royal Daily Report yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that button right now.